Hello, I'm Gyles Brandreth. I'm the author of the Oscar Wilde Murder Mysteries. I'm going to take you on a brief tour of Oscar Wilde's West End. And I'm beginning here at the Langham Hotel in Portland Place, not far from Oxford Circus Underground Station, for a reason. It's because 120 years ago, in August 1889, Oscar Wilde came here for dinner. And the man he dined with was Arthur Conan Doyle. And the result of their encounter was that Conan Doyle was persuaded to write the second of his Sherlock Holmes stories. Oscar Wilde decided to write The Picture of Dorian Gray. And a century later, I began to write the Oscar Wilde Murder Mysteries. Yes, it all began here. And it was here that Oscar gave that powerful advice when he said to Arthur Conan Doyle, "Murder? Oh, young man, never commit murder. A gentleman should never do anything he cannot talk about at dinner." I've cut across Mayfair to Albemarle Street, just off Piccadilly. I've come here because I wanted to show you this publishing house, John Murray, 50 Albemarle Street. They're my publishers. They publish the Oscar Wilde Murder Mysteries, but equally significantly, that's more so, they also were the publishers of Arthur Conan Doyle. Oscar Wilde is a fascinating hero to have, to be able to use in murder mysteries, because he's such a complex character. He's charismatic, but he's complicated. He's fascinating, but he's flawed. He leads a double life. He is, of course, as we know, a poet, a wit, a raconteur, playwright. He's also a detective. He leads a double life too, in the sense that his private life is not all that it seems, at least not all that it seems to his wife and children, who live a little way from here in Chelsea, in Tite Street. When Oscar Wilde comes up west, he keeps a different kind of company. He enjoys the company of young men. He adores the young and the beautiful. And one of the streets that he haunted a lot was Albemarle Street. He came to this hotel, Brown's Hotel, here in Albemarle Street. He used the telephone here. It was one of the first public telephones in London. I think maybe it was the very first. And Oscar Wilde used the telephone here at Brown's Hotel. And across the road, he would stay either at the Albemarle Hotel or at the Albemarle Club. And if you know the story of his downfall, you'll know that the Albemarle Club plays a significant part in it, because it was at that club that the Marquis of Queensberry left the visiting card accusing Oscar Wilde of posing as a sodomite. That was the beginning of the end. You come down Albemarle Street, you cross Piccadilly, and you find yourself in St James's. And we're looking for the site of the old St James's Theatre. And this is it, or what remains of it. I'm on the site of the old St James's Theatre in Angel Court off St James's. And it was in this theatre, which was demolished in 1957, that two of Oscar Wilde's most famous plays were first presented, Lady Windermere's Fan and The Importance of Being Earnest. And Lady Windermere's Fan is central to the plot of the second of my Oscar Wilde murder mysteries, Oscar Wilde and the Ring of Death. Something that happened here on the first night. The notorious first night of Lady Windermere's Fan is key to the plot of that particular murder mystery. This is not at all. It's a busy place, because this is Hatchard's in Piccadilly, where Oscar Wilde bought his books. And this is Waterstone's, where I buy mine. This is the stage door of the Theatre Royal Haymarket, and as you can see, there's a plaque here commemorating the first performances of an ideal husband and a woman of no importance. Oscar Wilde was a very theatrical person, but he knew all sorts of people. He knew the Prince of Wales, he knew common street prostitutes, and one of the reasons that I think he is such an effective detective is that he could mix with all walks and types in society. The usual Victorian detective, working for New Scotland Yard, if he went to interview a duke, would have to go in by the tradesman's entrance. Oscar Wilde, being a gentleman, could walk in at the front door. Oscar Wilde also, of course, was an Irishman. He was an outsider in England, and he observed, as an Irishman might, what was going on. Well, we've ended our walk here opposite Charing Cross station, opposite the Charing Cross that is the centre of London. And we've ended up here because this is where you'll find the Oscar Wilde monument statue created a few years ago by Maggie Hamley. It's an appropriate place for this statue to find itself because in a way we're at a sort of crossroads here. To the west is the West End where we've been, the theatres, the clubs, the restaurants that Oscar Wilde knew so well, both the public Oscar Wilde and the private Oscar Wilde when he was leading his double life. And to the east, down the Strand there, leading towards the Old Bailey, but eventually he was tried, found guilty, and given 2 years hard labour, at the end of which he emerged and went into exile, went over to France, never came back to England at all. Could have gone to France from here, Charing Cross. Could have gone home to Tite Street from here. Oscar Wilde used to travel on the Underground. Thank you for your company. I hope you enjoy the Oscar Wilde Murder Mysteries. There are 3 out so far, more to come, and you're allowed to enjoy them. They are about murder, but nonetheless, as Oscar observed, there's nothing quite like an unexpected death for lifting the spirits.